Hey everybody, welcome to the macro vid. We're going to get started with the SPY. So SPY on the monthly, we're closer to a 2-2 back down. You can see your monthly trend drawn out there, so we'll keep an eye on that. We do have the elections coming out this coming week, so we'll want to be aware of that. If you go to the Qs, also a little bit closer to a 2-2 month back down below this stuff around 477, so keep an eye on that. If you go to IWM, closer to a 2-2 month back down as well, below 214.60. We'll also have an inside week going into next week to trigger it, with an inside day as well for Monday, so be aware of that. And then the Dow, you'll see a shooter day as well, closer to the 2-2 month back down, and this would reclaim a scenario 3 outside bar broadening formation, something we'd like to know. And what we'll want to be known about is the fact that the quarter has changed. So the quarter and month will determine that intra-year control, and if the quarter and month are red with the monthly 2 to the downside, that's how we'll know if they're going to start hitting the bid. So closer to doing that on most things. When we go to this tech sector, you're going to see last quarter was a scenario 3 outside bar, and then closer to the 2-2 month back down, and we're still stuck inside that scenario 3, but similar to the tech, you're going to see also an outside week into next week. So they bought it up, sold it down, which means you're going to get the daily broadening formation. You can see the 3-2 reversal, and they got wrecked in here. So how are we getting out of this is our question. If we go to the semiconductors, very similar to the tech, and you'll see also the 3-2 reversal followed by the pukage getting wrecked in there. So you get the outside week and the month in here, also closer to a 2-2 back to the downside. So much closer to reversals on most of the big sectors there, tech, semis, and the big cap ETFs. That being said, we can also take a look and we'll see things like staples did pull off the highs. So although we did not nail the exact top, if you did not trade this last month, although we had mentioned it on Twitter and in other places in stat trading, you know, that could still go a lot further, right? As long as that's a 2 down month with full time from continuity down, they're trying to bring it back through this try here. So we'll want to know about that. Still an inside quarter, but bright red going into the rest of 2024, and, you know, reclaiming some of those previous yearly highs. So we'll keep an eye on that. And that's going to be things like Coca-Cola, one of the bigger holdings in there, 2-2 month puke, and then following through. And what you'll notice is these two bars are outside of this bar here. So this is your 3. Below this, 65.26, it's expanding, it's still going. So we want to know about that this month as well. Things like Pepsi. You can see with Coca-Cola, a little bit more stuck in here on Pepsi, but they're trying to bring it to the lows. So it's going to be moving with Coca-Cola and Pepsi together. You'll get things like Hershey's, which we had mentioned specifically for the stat trading guys, the 3-2 shooter quarter, and in the macro video last time. You'll notice the 3-on-2 quarter, which takes the year 3-2 down. So Hershey's, you know, if bad news and bad things are going to start hitting the market here for Hershey's, 178.82 below that. That's where that's more likely to occur. If we go to, I want to get my list up here. If we go to, and this is going to be Dow Jones and QQQ specifically, did look at a little bit of the SPY stuff, but if we go to Dow Jones specifically with the 2-2 month setting up, we will see Microsoft, which is also with the tech. So inside month Microsoft, which tells us Microsoft is relatively weak to the Dow Jones. So you can see they puke it down. They try to recover, but too weak to take out the previous highs like Dow Jones did. And then also inside month. So too weak to take last month's highs. So this will be closer to 2-1-2 reversal month below this stuff. 406.30. And this year, you know, it's not far from changing that if things start coming back in. So you go to the month, we get to the bottom of this trend, we could change the year, and that'd cause some issues for Microsoft. We got an outside week, so that is a broadening formation, much like everything else. Also the inside day, just like the rest of the market. So we will see, you know, coming into the second week of the month. If we go to the potential 2-2 reversals, you will have CAT, which could be the 2-2 month back through previous range. And they did have a pukage last week. You'll have the rev strat potentially if they can take this stuff out, 367.11 with that rev strat. Then we could get it puking again, but may go inside week. We'll see. McDonald's This could be very similar, and this one's been bounced around this try all year. So you can see up, down, RevStrat up, shooter / 2 up in red. Trying to bring them back in. So anytime McDonald's is below 289.84 this month, we want to know about that. And it does have a 3-2 down and back in a little bit on the week, but it could also become RevStrat on Monday. So we'll keep an eye on it. If it starts coming up back next week, 322, could technically go to that upside on it. We just got this gap we're going to have to deal with in here. So I'd still prefer the short, but we'll see. They also had that E. coli stuff, so there's some news in there. If we go to Home Depot and Lowe's in the Dow Jones, I believe Home Depot is the Dow Jones name. Forgive me if I'm wrong there, but you get the slight higher high. So you get this nice big try. You could draw it like that, which is the objective way to do it, or you could do it something like this, which is just trying to find that pattern, so to speak. Some people do it differently, but we're going to look for the 2-2 back down, and you got pivot machine gun if this works. So anytime Home Depot is below 389.05, we'd like to know about that. And on the week, we got no signals. On the day, we could have the 2-2-2, and this would be the Randy Jackson, the 1-2-2, followed by a 2-2 back down again. If we go to Lowe's, this could be the same thing, except it'd be a 3-1-2-2 RevStrat day with the 2 up in red months. You can see the same tries. So they're doing similar stuff. We'll be looking at that for the simultaneous break. There's also home builders, which we wanted to see them try and recover, but they were not strong enough to do so. So they're still staying down after the recent puke. And this is also going to be holding things like the Dow Jones, or not Dow Jones, the Home Depot and the Lowe's. So Home Depot and Lowe's would be simultaneous break in the home builders below this stuff. And that'd cause some issues. Home builders 111.95. And that can tell you things like maybe KBH, which had already reversed in the home builders. It's, closer to 2-2 back up. If we go to PHM, you're going to see also 3 on the month last month, showing some aggression. If we go to TOL, you're going to see the 2 up in red month as well. So these are like the home building stocks, and then Home Depot and those are kind of their own little sector or section of that. But those are the 2 I'd like to focus on. And then from all-time highs exhaustion risks, there's things like AXP, which could be the 2-2 back down. We got some broadening information in here. It's going to look something like that. If we drop it down to a weekly, you might see this a little clearer. It's not my favorite in the world, but it does have an inside week back in here. So if I can start reclaiming, bringing them through these guys, then we'd have something to talk about, but not my favorite. It's just in there. And then IBM has been on a tear all year, but could turn into the monthly PMG back down. And the broadening information here is not as clear as some other things. If we go to the week, you'll see it a little better. The poke up, the poke down. And you can see they're right back to it. So do they act as support, try and recover, or do we bring it back in, pivot machine gun back through all this stuff? And IBM's been like, a crazy one. So this could be a nice mover if the months start really coming in. And then you got Apple, which is also maybe a 2-2 back down after the compound 3, these 3 bars outside of that. And ideally, you're going to see once we get to more of the semi stuff, but ideally we want stuff that's going to be red on the year that's already going down. You can see these things. Yeah, we can get some puke in there, but we want things that'll take the yearly opens out, which is ideal. We'll still keep an eye because full time frame continuity is the month, weekday, and 60. So it's not just the year, but the weakest stuff will be red on the year. So if we compare like Apple to Hershey's, right, you can see the slight difference there. So it's something we'll keep in mind. It's not necessary for trading, but it's something I like to look for. That being said, in the Dow Jones, you'll also have things like DOW, which had the 3 last month and then back through that 3, and now maybe they turn into expansion. And if we go and take a look at the yearly, DOW could turn into a 3-1-2 down below 47.26. I personally don't trade it much, but we're seeing that potential yearly signal. If we go then to the QQQ stuff, we're going to see inside in the Qs, which will be relatively weak, or going up, depending on what those 2s are breaking. We will see Starbucks taking the inside month up, so a little stronger this month, but that could turn into RevStrat pretty quickly, especially if next week, Monday, they decide to bring that one back in at. You can see slight lower low, slight higher high, chop, 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 slight higher high. If that were to take this out, then they might bring them back in and rev strat that thing. But for now, it's stronger. If we go to MU, we'll see the potential 312 reversal month below that. It's something we want to know about for certain. In the chips, 98, 94 in MU. And there's no weekly signals to do that. And no daily momentum measured move into that. If we go to shooters in the Qs, CPRT, and I think O'Reilly, it's also going to be in there, but CPRT, you'll see the 322. So they had the 322 in here, which was a little bit of a chop, but bigger 322 below this stuff. And it's not the biggest mover in the world. 5103, you'll see that. And no weekly signals or anything. If we go to O'Reilly, which is going to be on the list for me, you will see the shooter 322. It's actually counter hammer, which means it's momentum. And what that means is if we're shorting this on the monthly break, we could put a stop at the monthly open. It really should just go. Whenever you counter an actionable signal like a hammer, you expect that counter to go right away because it's countering a signal, which means, they sold it down, bought it up, and then tried to buy it up. The sellers came in here and said, nope. And then once it takes this out, all the buyers, they start having a problem. They get out right away is the thought process there. That being said, we'll keep an eye on it. You can see there's momentum shooter day. I'd prefer to let it triangle out first, but we'll see. If we go to the stars, the things we're really looking for. Verizon. So you'll see the 131 in Verizon on the weekly, and that would be 312 momentum after the poke up. So we'd be looking to poke down, take all these guys out. And the nice thing about these stocks in the Dow Jones specifically, which I'm 99% sure it is, might not be, but I'm 99% sure. But the ones that are lower volatility, like your Verizons, your Intels, your airlines, cruise lines, that type of stuff, is options are really cheap. So if we can look for the 40 put for like December, that would be worth, a lot more if it trades down to like 37. So something I'd like to know about below 41.12 next week. And we do obviously have election stuff, so be aware of that. But here's your inside data triggered as well. So day into the week, into the month. If we go to GEHC, you'll see this. The 2122 rev strat below this stuff. 86.72. If that works, we could take the week, you could call that momentum shooter, but doji week down. And if that works, we would take the inside month pivot machine gun to the downside after a very slight higher high. And if that works, maybe reverse the quarter. But I like the fact you get the daily PMG and you get the monthly PMG all in one. And we already looked at O'Reilly. If we go to AVGO in the chips, you're going to see the shooter month. And this one's pretty green on the year, you'll see still. So a little bit stronger than the rest, but potential rev strat quarter from all-time highs exhaustion risk with the 2-2 month to cause it. And the week is momentum shoot with an inside day like many other things. And actually, yep, there it is. If we go to AMAT in the chips, you'll see the slight 2-up day. If we go to the month, this would actually be 1-2-2 rev strat. Try and take all these guys out below 179.28. And you'll notice in this one, that could negate the year for the 313. Maybe it runs out of time, right? Depending on, do we get any crazy stuff this election? But that would set up the rev strat for next year. So we can start doing that towards the end of 2024 here. We'll also see AMD doing similar. So it's already red on the year in AMD. That's a big problem. And it is 2-2 month down in AMD. So that's already starting to be an issue to start the month. So we can't have that. If we go to AMAT, we already got that. NXPI, you're going to see also potentially a 2-2 month could trigger the 2-2 quarter, reclaiming an outside quarter. Would negate the year as well. So these are all the weaker chips. And you can see if we go to MU, or actually, yeah, we did talk about MU, but MU, the 3-2 month would also negate that year and potentially rev strat. So like these big shooter years, it reminds me of ARC. You can see nice big upper wick and then 3-2-2, and they just crater after rallying it up for a couple of years really strongly. When we look at the chips, reminds us of that, doesn't it? So we'll definitely want to know about that. If we go to QCOM, same thing. You see already reclaimed all-time highs. Quarter reverse last quarter, it would have the rev strat month, it would have the 3-2 week to do it, and you'd have the inside day, or maybe a rev strat on Tuesday to try and make that happen. KLAC, this one's been a little bit weaker than the rest, 3, and then the shooter counter hammer, again, momentum below this stuff, it should just go 6, 5, 5, 8, 7, and then you go to the quarter, that would cause the quarterly, I'm looking around my mic here, sorry. Cause the quarterly 2-2 reversal and maybe start bringing it in. The year is still slightly green, but we could change that, within the quarter. And then CSX double star. I think this is just a solid looker for the PMG. You can see the 3-1 potential outside bar for the 313 to go to 2580. We go to see the month. You have the monthly rev strat pivot machine gun, which is this is what we are looking for, really. Take all these guys out in one go, and you have the inside week to do that, and then you have the daily. If you go to a 2-day chart, the daily 2-day chart here to do all of that, right? So the day could trigger the month, could trigger the outside quarter rev strat, could trigger the yearly rev strat outside year. So just from all that stuff, we could get a 22% move in there. It wouldn't be bad. And really for the small account guys, that could turn a small account to a big account if you manage that correctly. That being said, I don't have too much else I want to cover here. I know it's a lot of downside stuff. What I do have is a few observations. Day. Don't know if it's giving me day force. All right, day force. So while the market's been puking this thing, rev stratting its year, and you'll see bright green on the month to start, 2-2 quarter in force, and yearly 2 going 3 rev strat. So that's an interesting one. There's also MCK, which is inside month and up already this month, trying to reclaim a 3. So there's a few things in there they're rotating into. I don't have too much else to add to that. Sector basis, what I can say is we already talked staples being weak. Materials are also starting off a little bit weaker. You'll see the monthly broadening formation, the poke down, the poke up. So potentially 2-2 back through that stuff. And that's normally your gold and silver, which start kicking that off. Gold has a slight shooter week, but still has that bright green year in force. So it's going to be hard to change that. Silver, a little bit worse off, reclaiming some of this broadening formation, but it's not the end of the world yet. We'll see. If we go to the healthcare sector, the puke 2-2 month last month coming back in, so it causes some issues. They firm up a little bit to start the new month inside on the month, but closer to rev strats. So there's some stuff like that has been weak already going down with the staples. It's like staples and healthcares for the most part. And outside of that, if we go to the real estates, and this is just kind of adding on the sector analysis. I normally don't trade much of this stuff, but we'll see with the scans, nightly videos and stuff, what sets up in here. But real estates, you can see the poke up, the poke down, the poke up, potentially the poke back down. Quarter, still no reversal. If we go to regional banks, you can see, nothing really in here is screaming short yet, but you have this rev strat for next week, and we could add that. I like trading KRE just by itself straight up because you don't have the risk of delisting and whatnot with the smaller banks. But if that rev strat week plays out, potentially you can see we might start coming back through all this stuff. So we'll see. It's not the best, not the worst in the world. Financials overall is still a little bit stronger. You can see just inside month, they did start moving a little bit last week, but just kind of chopping them up. So not too much to talk about there besides regionals specifically. But that is about all I have got. And obviously, as the month goes on, as things open up, we will see what's moving, see what's not. But that's all I got. So hopefully you guys enjoy. See you guys in the nightly video Monday night. And hopefully we might have like a stream during the lecture. I'm not sure. I think I might be hanging out with some friends and whatnot. But if I'm not, then we'll maybe do an election stream looking at the futures and talking about price action. So keep an eye out for that. Watch my Twitter and I'll let you guys know if that's a plan or not. But that's all I got for you guys. Have a good rest of your night. I'll see you guys. bright and early next week or on Monday night's Nightly Vid.